The room still smelled faintly of antiseptic and newborn powder when Logan Hayes dropped the divorce papers onto the foot of the hospital bed. No warning, no hesitation. Just a cold, calculated gesture from the man who had once sworn he'd move mountains for her. Madison Clark blinked in disbelief, her body still weak from delivering their triplet daughters only hours earlier. 3 miracles, and yet the first thing he did was walk away. "You'll be fine," Logan muttered, adjusting the cuff of his tailored navy suit. "This arrangement no longer benefits me. Sign the papers. My attorney will handle custody." Custody. He said the word like the babies were assets, not human beings. Madison felt her throat tighten. She had no strength to argue, no family to call. She'd given up everything, her design career, her savings, her dreams, just to support Logan's rise in Manhattan. And now, when she needed him most, he discarded her like an old contract. Hours later, when nurses rolled the triplets to the nursery window, Madison forced herself up despite the pain. She had to breathe, she had to think. But then the hallway fell silent. Because a man in a charcoal suit, a stranger with a presence so commanding, nurses stepped aside, approached the glass. He didn't hesitate. He lifted one of her daughters with practiced gentleness, as if holding royalty. Then another. Then the third. His expression softened with awe, reverence, something almost protective. People whispered. Who was he? And why did he look at Madison's children like they belonged to him? Madison's heart pounded as he finally turned, and their eyes met. "Madison Clark?" he asked softly. "I've been looking for you." Her world shifted, and nothing would ever be the same again. The stranger's next words made Madison's knees nearly buckle. Madison Clark had always been the kind of woman people underestimated. Soft-spoken, warm-eyed, the girl who apologized even when something wasn't her fault. Born in a quiet suburb of Portland, she grew up in a small rental house with peeling paint and a mother who worked double shifts at a diner just to keep the lights on. Madison learned early what sacrifice looked like, what love looked like, long before she understood its cost. By 17, she was sketching dresses in the margins of her school notebooks, dreaming of studying fashion design in New York. She earned a scholarship, packed a single suitcase, and left Oregon with nothing but ambition and a second-hand iPhone whose screen cracked the week she arrived in Manhattan. Life there wasn't glamorous. She worked late nights at a coffee shop near Fifth Avenue, surviving on tips and stale pastries, juggling classes at Parsons in the daytime. And that was where she met Logan Hayes, the man who would both change her life and break it apart. Logan was charming then. He'd walk into the coffee shop wearing a pressed shirt and a Mont Blanc pen in his pocket, pretending to be humble while making sure everyone noticed the Rolex on his wrist. Madison believed his stories about his big dreams, his lonely childhood, his need for someone real, and Ben Strode. She didn't know he was grooming her to become the perfect accessory to his rising corporate career. When she married him at 24, Madison thought she had found safety. She cooked his meals, supported his ambitions, attended his networking events, even when she could barely keep her eyes open. Slowly, her own dreams were buried beneath his. Her design portfolio gathered dust, her scholarship faded, and Logan convinced her she wasn't cut out for the industry anyway. Then came the pregnancy. Triplets. A miracle for her, an inconvenience for him. The further her pregnancy progressed, the more distant Logan became. Late meetings, unexplained trips, cold glances over his MacBook Pro, as if her growing belly was a problem he didn't have time to solve. Madison hid her fear, telling herself he would come around. He didn't. And the night she delivered their 3 daughters, 3 perfect, tiny souls, he handed her divorce papers before she could even sit up in bed. But Madison wasn't weak. She wasn't done. Her world had cracked open, yes, but something fierce inside her was waking up. And when that mysterious man lifted her daughters like treasures, something told her the universe had just redrawn her path. The first thing he revealed about her past would shatter everything she thought she knew. New York City had a way of swallowing people whole, especially those who entered it with nothing but hope and a borrowed coat. Madison had lived there for nearly 6 years, yet it still felt like a world built for everyone except her. Manhattan's skyline sparkled like a promise in the night, but up close, it was a battlefield where the powerful thrived and the powerless learned to disappear quietly. Logan belonged to the first group. She, painfully, had belonged to the second. Their home, a sleek apartment overlooking the Hudson, had been curated entirely for his image. Glass walls, minimalist furniture, A wine fridge worth more than her college debt. A showcase life, Logan called it, something worthy of investors and board members. But Madison had always felt like a guest in her own home. Her touches never lasted. The soft throw blanket she bought was replaced with a designer cashmere one. Her candles were swapped out for luxury diffusers. Even her favorite plant disappeared one day because, as Logan put it, "It doesn't match the aesthetic." End quote. End quote. The hospital where she gave birth was just as polished, floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, the soft hum of expensive machines. Nurses carried iPads, and visitors strolled through hallways wearing tailored coats from Fifth Avenue. Everything about the place screamed money, success, status, and yet Madison felt like the poorest woman in the city. After the divorce papers were thrown onto her bed, Logan vanished back into his world of corporate towers and Park Avenue boardrooms. She was alone, recovering, surrounded by luxury she couldn't claim, and a medical bill she had no idea how she would pay. Her daughters were her only light, tiny, swaddled, perfect. But even they were born into a world already stacked against them, which made the sight of the mysterious stranger even more jarring. When he lifted her daughters in the nursery window as if they were crowned princesses, the staff treated him differently, with respect, with recognition. His presence didn't belong to the chaos of public hospitals. No, he carried the quiet authority of someone who owned buildings, not just walked through them. Outside, Madison could see the Manhattan skyline glowing through the glass. The city she once believed would nurture her dreams now felt like a giant that could crush her with a single, indifferent step. And now, this man had stepped into her story. But was he another threat, or the only lifeline she had left? She didn't know yet, but she would soon. Because the moment he revealed his full name, the nurse gasped and dropped her clipboard. Before Madison ever realized she was trapped, Logan Hayes had already perfected the art of appearing flawless. On the surface, he was everything women dreamed of: tall, articulate, polished in a way that made even boardroom executives straighten their ties around him. With his meticulously styled hair and a wardrobe full of tailored suits, he looked like success packaged into human form. But Madison learned too late that men like Logan didn't fall in love, they recruited. Logan came from an upbringing marked by ruthless ambition. His father, a failed entrepreneur, drilled into him the belief that love was a weakness and relationships only served one purpose: leverage. By the time Logan reached Manhattan, he knew exactly how to climb. He charmed investors at wine bars in Tribeca. He whispered promises to senior partners over steak dinners. He used people like stepping stones, never caring who sank beneath him. And Madison? She wasn't a wife to him. She was an accessory, useful until she wasn't. During their marriage, Logan crafted a public persona of a devoted husband, always smiling for gala cameras, always touching Madison's lower back like she was cherished. But behind closed doors, he belittled her dreams, mocked her designs, and insisted she stay focused on supporting him. When she became pregnant with triplets, his mask cracked. He hated the idea of being tied down, hated the noise, the mess, the responsibility. He wanted the prestige of fatherhood, never the reality. While Madison was confined to bed rest, Logan was busy entertaining someone else. A new assistant. Younger. Flashier. The type who wore tight dresses to meetings and snapped selfies in the back of black Mercedes sedans. Her name was Brielle. And Logan flaunted her everywhere except the one place Madison might see. By the time Madison gave birth, Logan had already decided she was no longer convenient. Pregnancy had made her less presentable, he told a colleague. The divorce papers were prepared weeks before the due date. All he needed was the perfect moment to discard her. And in his mind, nothing could be more efficient than handing her the papers while she was too exhausted to fight back, lying in a hospital bed, barely able to lift her head. Logan walked out of the hospital that night, confident he had secured his future. But he didn't know the universe had just introduced a far more powerful player into Madison's life. And he definitely didn't know what that man would reveal next. Because the moment Logan saw Madison standing beside that man days later, his entire expression shattered. Madison had barely slept since giving birth, her body aching, her mind fraying under the weight of betrayal. She had no strength, no plan, no idea why the mysterious stranger had asked for her by name. All she wanted was peace, just one quiet moment to breathe. But Manhattan didn't offer mercy. 3 days after the birth, the hospital hosted a small donor luncheon in the atrium, a polished space filled with indoor greenery, soft lighting, and marble floors that reflected every movement like a stage. Madison wasn't supposed to attend. She was only passing through on her way to fill out discharge paperwork. But fate had sharper timing, because Logan Hayes was there. With Brielle on his arm, the assistant-turned-mistress wore a fitted cream dress, hair curled to perfection, heels tapping like taunts on the reflective floor. Logan's arm rested on her waist, and he looked proud, as if he hadn't just abandoned his wife and newborn daughters days earlier. Whispers began as soon as Brielle leaned against him possessively. Isn't his wife in recovery? Aren't they supposed to have triplets? He moved on fast. Daisy. Madison froze at the edge of the crowd, her hospital-issued slippers making her feel even smaller. Her oversized cardigan couldn't hide the exhaustion in her face or the bruised circles under her eyes. She hadn't expected applause. But she hadn't expected this display either. Then Logan saw her. Instead of shame, he gave a mocking half-smile. "Madison," he said loudly, drawing attention, "you shouldn't be on your feet. This isn't a good look." It was a dagger dressed as concern. Brielle giggled, covering her mouth dramatically. "Oh, is that her? She looks tired." The murmurs swelled, embarrassed glances, awkward sympathy, pity sharper than knives. Madison felt her throat tighten. She wanted to walk away, but her legs refused to move. Then the elevator dinged, and out stepped the mysterious man in the charcoal suit. 2 security guards flanked him. A hospital administrator hurried behind him. Even the doctors straightened at his presence. The air shifted, recognition rippling across the room. He wasn't just someone. He was someone powerful. His eyes found Madison instantly, and his expression softened not with pity, but with something like fierce protectiveness. He walked straight toward her, ignoring Logan completely. Every head in the room turned. "Madison," he said gently, "I'm here for you. And for your daughters?" Logan stiffened. "Excuse me? Who the hell are you?" The man finally turned to him, calm, composed, lethal. "I'm the man who owns the company you work for." Madison didn't remember how she made it back to her hospital room. One moment, the mysterious man Elias Ward, as she overheard the administrator whisper, stood beside her like a shield, and the next she was collapsing onto the thin mattress, trembling uncontrollably. The room felt too bright, too sterile, too small to contain the storm inside her. The humiliation from the atrium replayed in brutal flashes. Logan's smirk, Brielle's laughter, the whispers, the pity. Her chest tightened until she could barely breathe. She pressed her palms against her eyes as tears streamed down uncontrollably. She tried to hold it together for her daughters, for her sanity, but the weight of everything crushed her. She had no home, no husband, no income, triplets relying on her, and medical bills piling like mountains she had no strength to climb. Her dreams of designing, of building a life rooted in love, felt like distant memories, washed away in one cruel week. She curled toward the wall, trying to steady her breathing, but exhaustion mixed with heartbreak made her body shake. A soft knock broke through the haze. "Madison?" a nurse whispered. "Your little girls, they're asking for you." That sentence alone splintered her heart. Her babies, her only light. She forced herself upright, wiping her face with the sleeve of her hospital gown. She followed the nurse to the nursery, her steps unsteady. When she reached the window, 3 tiny faces rested peacefully beneath soft pink blankets. Their innocence, their fragile breathing, their small fingers curled into determined fists, it nearly broke her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Her reflection in the glass looked defeated, hair messy, eyes swollen, shoulders slumped. She hated the woman staring back, not because she was weak, but because she had allowed someone like Logan to convince her she had no worth beyond serving him. A shadow appeared beside her. Elias Ward. He kept a respectful distance, his voice low. "You don't have to pretend you're okay." She shook her head. "I'm not. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to take care of 3 babies alone. I don't even know where I'm going to live." Doesn't. Elias watched the triplets with a softness that didn't match his powerful demeanor. "You're not alone, Madison. Not anymore." She turned toward him, confusion tightening her brows. "Why? Why do you care? You don't even know me." But his answer was something she never expected. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded envelope, aged, carefully protected, placing it gently into her hands. "Because someone you loved once saved my life," he said. "And now, it's my turn." End Forest. Madison stared at the envelope in her trembling hands. It looked strangely out of place in this modern hospital corridor, aged paper, rough edges, sealed with a faint, faded crest she didn't recognize. She looked up at Elias Ward, expecting some kind of explanation, but he simply nodded toward it, encouraging her to open it. Inside was a single handwritten letter. A name leapt from the first line, her mother's. Her breath caught. Her mother, Evelyn Clark, had died when Madison was 18. A quiet woman, gentle but private, who worked endlessly to make ends meet. Madison had always believed her mother lived an unremarkable life. But the letter told another story. It was addressed to Elias Ward. "If anything ever happens to me," the letter read, "look after my daughter. She will grow up believing she is ordinary. She is not." Madison's vision blurred. She blinked, rereading the words to be sure they were real. Her mother, writing to a billionaire, trusting him, knowing he would one day find Madison? Her voice cracked. "I don't understand. My mother barely had enough money to buy groceries. How did she know you?" Elias exhaled slowly, the kind of breath someone takes when preparing to open a locked door from the past. "Your mother saved my life 25 years ago," he explained quietly, the nursery lights reflecting softly in his dark eyes. He had been a teenager then, homeless for a time, running from a violent home. One freezing winter night in Portland, he collapsed behind a convenience store, hypothermia moments from claiming him. Evelyn, walking home from a late shift, found him and refused to leave him. She used her coat, her scarf, her gloves to warm him until paramedics arrived. "She stayed with me," Elias said, "even though the ground was ice. Even though she didn't know my name, she kept me alive." If Dawn. Madison clutched the letter to her chest, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "My mother never told me," she whispered. "She didn't do it for recognition. She did it because that's who she was," Elias replied softly. "She asked for nothing. But she made me promise one thing, that if she ever couldn't protect you, I would." Madison shook her head. "But why now? Why find me after all these years?" Elias's gaze flicked toward the nursery, where the triplets slept, tiny and defenseless. "Because your mother also told me something else," he said, his voice lowering. "Something I didn't believe until I searched for you." Madison's breath hitched. "What? What did she say?" He stepped closer, his expression turning solemn. "She said Logan Hayes would destroy you. And she told me the truth about who your father really is." Madison didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, because for the first time in years, she could feel her spine straightening, her breath deepening, her pulse steadying with something she barely recognized anymore: resolve. Learning the truth about her mother, about her father, about the danger Logan represented, it cracked something open inside her. But it wasn't a wound, it was a doorway. By morning, she made a decision. She would no longer play the role Logan wrote for her. Elias returned early, carrying a warm Starbucks cup and a sleek black tote bag. "You'll need these," he said gently, placing them beside her. Inside was a simple but elegant set of clothes, a soft cashmere sweater, tailored maternity pants, clean flats, nothing extravagant, but far from the wrinkled hospital gown that made her feel like a ghost. Madison changed slowly, her body still weak, but when she looked at herself in the mirror, she didn't see the broken woman Logan tried to leave behind. She saw someone her mother would recognize, someone who deserved better. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To get you discharged," Elias said, "and to take you someplace safe, a place no one can touch you." As they walked toward the elevator, Madison noticed the change. Nurses smiled warmly, doctors greeted her with respect. Security subtly cleared the path. They weren't reacting to her, they were reacting to Elias Ward. His presence was the kind that parted seas. But instead of shrinking behind him, Madison stood a little taller. Outside, a sleek black SUV waited at the curb. Not flashy, just discreet, polished, and unmistakably expensive. The driver opened the door, offering a respectful nod. For the first time since the divorce papers hit her bed, Madison exhaled without shaking. The SUV glided through Manhattan, passing the glass towers where Logan had built his self-made kingdom. She stared at them, not with longing, but with clarity. She had once believed this city would shape her. She now understood she would have to shape herself. They crossed over into a quieter part of the city, where tall iron gates guarded a private residential complex overlooking the river. Security checked badges, records, even facial scans before waving them through. "This is where you'll stay," Elias said softly. "Your mother left more behind than you ever knew." End quote. The SUV stopped before a modern, sunlit corner residence with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the water that rivaled the sky. "This can't be for me," Madison whispered. "It's yours," Elias replied. "Your mother kept it in trust." Madison's knees weakened. "I don't know if I'm ready for this new life." Elias's eyes softened. "You'll need to be, because someone just found out where you are." Madison hadn't expected to step into her new life so quickly. The corner residence, the quiet luxury, the safety, everything felt like stepping into someone else's skin. But reality snapped back the moment Elias's phone buzzed with an alert that made his jaw clench. "They know where you are," he said quietly. "Who?" Madison whispered. Elias didn't answer immediately. Instead, he guided her inside the residence, settling her on the couch as he checked the perimeter cameras from a touchscreen panel. The triplets slept peacefully in their bassinets, unaware of the storm gathering. A security guard stepped into the foyer. "Sir, someone attempted to access the front gate using an outdated credential from Hayes Global." Madison stiffened. "Logan." Elias dismissed the guard and turned back to Madison, voice steady. "He can't get in, but he's escalating." She didn't understand why Logan cared. He had left her. He had flaunted Brielle in public. He had wanted her gone. But now that she had protection, a home, and someone powerful at her side, suddenly Logan wanted control again. Control he was about to lose. "Madison," Elias said, "your mother didn't just save my life. She gave me the blueprint to end the man trying to destroy yours." Elias placed a slim silver laptop on the coffee table and pulled up a series of confidential documents, financial ledgers, employee records, emails marked classified. Madison's eyes widened. "These are all related to Hayes Global," he said. "Your husband's company." "I don't understand. Why would you have these?" "Because Hayes Global is a subsidiary of my corporation," Elias answered. "Logan works for me, he always has. And he's violated more agreements than I can count." Madison leaned back, stunned. Elias Ward wasn't just a billionaire, he was Logan's highest-ranking superior. And Logan had no idea. "Tomorrow," Elias continued, "is Hayes Global's annual investor reception at the Vanguard Tower. Logan plans to present new projections. He assumes he'll be promoted. He assumes he'll be celebrated." Elias's expression hardened. He's built his entire career on lies, cover-ups, and stealing the work of people he thinks won't fight back. Madison felt a spark, tiny but fierce in her chest. "So what happens tomorrow?" she asked softly. "You," Elias said, "will walk into that building. Not as his wife, not as his victim, but as the rightful owner of the shares your mother left you." Madison stared at him, breath frozen. "My mother owned part of Hayes Global?" "Not part," Elias corrected. "A controlling portion, enough to end Logan's entire facade." Her pulse hammered. Revenge wasn't an accident now. It was inevitable. Elias stood, offering his hand. "Tomorrow, Madison, you reclaim your power." End quote. As she reached for him, her phone lit up with an incoming message from an unknown number. And when she opened it, Logan's voice message made her blood run cold. Madison replayed Logan's voice message 3 times. Each time, her stomach tightened harder. "You think you can hide from me? You think anyone will believe you over me? You won't last a week without my support, Madison. And those babies, you won't keep them for long." "And when did?" His tone was venomous, stripped of the polished charm he wore like a mask. For the first time, Madison heard the real Logan. No pretense. No veneer. Just raw entitlement. Elias stayed silent as she handed him the phone. When the message finished, he simply set it aside, his jaw tightening not with anger, but with calculation. The kind of cold focus that built empires. "You won't respond," he said. "Tomorrow is bigger than him, bigger than anything he threatened." "And Dre?" Madison nodded, though fear pricked at her. She wasn't accustomed to confrontation, but this wasn't about her comfort anymore. This was about her daughters, the 3 tiny lives who depended on her to rise when everything in her wanted to collapse. At dawn, the residence buzzed with quiet preparation. Elias's security team briefed her on everything: her entrance, her presence at the investor event, her legal authority as controlling shareholder. Madison listened, absorbing each instruction like armor being fitted. By 9 a.m., the SUV pulled up before Vanguard Tower, a gleaming steel and glass monument slicing into the Manhattan sky. Executives in tailored suits swarmed the lobby, clutching briefcases and iPads. Photographers lingered near the escalators, waiting for high-profile board members. Madison stepped out of the SUV wearing a soft cream blazer, her hair neatly pulled back. She didn't look like the woman Logan humiliated days earlier. She looked like she belonged. As she walked inside beside Elias, whispers rippled through the crowd. Is that? Thought she just had triplets. Why is she with Ward? Upstairs, the investor hall buzzed with anticipation. Logan stood on stage, adjusting the microphone, wearing the confident smile of a man who thought he'd already won. Thank you for being here, Logan began smoothly. Today marks the future of Hayes Global. The double doors opened. Every head turned. Madison entered. Logan's face drained of color. Brielle, seated in the front row, froze with her glossy lips parted. Investors murmured, confused by Madison's presence, and especially by the man walking beside her. Elias Ward. Logan's voice cracked despite his attempt to steady it. What are you doing here? Madison didn't answer. She walked straight toward the stage, heels clicking with quiet authority. Elias handed her a folder. Show them. Madison opened it. Inside were the legal documents proving her controlling ownership, signed, verified, irrefutable. Logan reached for the papers, panic surfacing. No, you don't know what you're doing. Madison lifted her microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, she said steadily, I'm here to announce a leadership change. If you have us for us. A stunned silence settled across the investor hall, sharp as broken glass. Madison stood tall at the podium, her trembling replaced by a carefully forged resolve. Logan stared at her as if she had risen from the dead because in his mind, she had. He had buried her. He had counted on her silence, her passivity, her willingness to disappear. But here she was, alive, present, powerful. The lead investor, a seasoned woman with steel-gray hair, stood slowly. Mrs. Clark, or should I say, Mrs. Hayes, what exactly are you claiming? Madison lifted the folder Elias gave her. My mother, Evelyn Clark, held majority control of Hayes Global through a private trust. Those shares legally transferred to me. As of today, I am the largest single stakeholder. Gasps echoed shock, admiration, disbelief. Logan stumbled forward, face flushed. This is absurd. That trust was dissolved years ago. She has no standing. Elias stepped between them, his voice cold enough to freeze the room. Incorrect. Your legal team forged dissolution paperwork. The real documents remain untouched. And your signature, he pointed at the projection screen where the original dissolution form appeared, is fraudulent. Investors began murmuring, alarmed. Phones lit up. Legal advisors whispered urgently. Brielle shifted nervously in her seat, arms crossed tightly, masquerade, eyes darting from investor to investor. This wasn't the celebration she imagined. This wasn't the moment she dreamed of standing beside a rising star. She was watching a man fall. Logan's breath became unsteady. Sweat dotted his forehead. Madison, he hissed under his breath. You don't know what you're doing. You're ruining everything. No, Madison said, her voice clear and steady. You ruined everything the moment you tried to break me. The lead investor pointed at security. Remove Mr. Hayes from the stage until we verify all documents. Logan panicked. Wait, you can't. This is my presentation. 2 security guards approached, but he twisted away, frantic. Elias, tell them. You can't let her destroy the company. I'm not destroying it, Madison cut in. I'm saving it from you. Her words struck him like a physical blow. Investors, smelling blood, began asking questions about misappropriated funds, missing budgets, false projections. Madison watched as all of Logan's carefully constructed lies unraveled in real time. He tried to speak, but every denial made him sound guiltier. Finally, security grabbed him by the arms. This isn't over, he shouted. You think you've won? You have no idea what you're stepping into. As he was dragged toward the exit, he struggled violently, shouting, I know things about her mother. About her father. You think Ward is helping you? You're being played. The room fell silent. Madison's heart thudded painfully. Elias's expression darkened. Because Logan's final accusation wasn't random. It was deliberate and dangerous. And before Madison could demand answers, the fire alarm suddenly blared, followed by a voice over the speaker announcing an evacuation triggered on her floor. The shrill fire alarm sliced through the investor hall like a blade. Red lights strobed across the walls, splashing everyone's faces with jagged flashes of color. Panic rippled instantly, executives scrambling to gather laptops, investors clutching briefcases, Brielle nearly tripping in her designer heels. Madison froze. This wasn't a coincidence. Something or someone had triggered it. Elias immediately stepped in front of her, his voice steady but sharp. "Stay behind me." His security team moved fast, forming a barrier around her as the crowd surged toward the double doors. Madison's pulse hammered. The triplets. Her mind raced to the residence, imagining the bassinets, the tiny chests rising and falling. Were they safe? Was Logan desperate enough to? Elias seemed to read her panic. "Your daughters are secure. The alert is only here, not at the residence." But his eyes flicked upward toward the ceiling, scanning the ducts, the fire sprinklers, the vents, as if expecting something worse. Security ushered them into a side corridor, away from the rushing crowd. The hallway was dimmer, quieter, but tension clung to every inch of the air. "This wasn't an accident, was it?" Madison whispered. "No," Elias said. "This is a diversion." "For what?" His jaw tightened. "To get to you, or to whatever information Logan thinks he can weaponize." Madison felt a cold fist wrap around her stomach. "Logan said he knew things about my mother. About my father. Was that true?" Elias didn't answer immediately. His silence confirmed it more than words. They reached a restricted elevator guarded by two men in black uniforms. One scanned Elias's ID, then pressed a sequence of buttons that didn't exist on the public panel. The elevator descended instead of rising deep beneath the tower. "Where are we going?" Madison asked, gripping the rail as the floor vibrated underfoot. "To the secure archive level," Elias said, "before Logan's people reach it." "Why would they?" "Because your mother left more than shares behind," he answered. "She left documentation, messages, evidence of the people who once tried to destroy her." Madison swallowed hard. "And my father?" Elias exhaled. "Yes, especially him." The elevator doors opened into a concrete hallway lined with biometric scanners. This wasn't part of any corporate office she had ever seen. This was a fortress. They hurried toward a reinforced vault door. But just as Elias reached for the keypad, a metallic clang echoed from behind them. Security turned, guns raised. Footsteps. Deliberate. Approaching. The lights flickered overhead. Elias stepped in front of Madison, shielding her with his body. From the shadows, a masked figure emerged, armed, confident, and walking directly toward them. Madison gasped, because in the intruder's hand was Logan's stolen ID badge still smeared with fresh blood. The hallway fell into a chilling stillness, broken only by the soft hum of the emergency lights flickering overhead. Madison's breath caught in her throat as the masked intruder stepped fully into view, the blood-streaked ID badge dangling between gloved fingers like a warning. Elias motioned sharply for his guards to hold their positions. His posture was calm, too calm, yet Madison sensed tension coiled in him like a drawn bow. "Who sent you?" Elias demanded, voice steady but edged in steel. The intruder said nothing. Instead, they dropped Logan's badge onto the concrete floor, letting it clatter ominously, then pointed directly at Madison. Madison staggered back, her spine hitting the cold wall. Her pulse roared in her ears. Elias shifted, blocking the attacker's line of sight. "You won't touch her." That was when Madison noticed something small but unmistakable. The intruder's hands trembled. Not with fear, with barely restrained rage. She caught a faint, muffled voice beneath the mask, a woman's voice. "Give me the files," the intruder hissed. "Now." Elias narrowed his eyes. "So, Logan sent you." The woman let out a harsh laugh. "Logan? He's useless. He's already bleeding out in a stairwell somewhere. I work for the people he thought he could blackmail." The words hit Madison like ice water. Logan wasn't the mastermind. He was a pawn. A dangerous one, but not the biggest threat. The intruder stepped closer, gun rising. "Open the vault," the documents about Evelyn Clark, and the identity of the father. Madison's stomach twisted. Why? Why do you want information about my mother? Because your mother destroyed the wrong man, the intruder snapped. And now his family wants what she died protecting. Before Madison could ask more, the woman lunged. In an instant, Elias's guards fired, the bullets ricocheting off the metal beams overhead. The intruder rolled behind a pillar, firing back with precision that revealed training far beyond corporate security. Elias grabbed Madison's wrist, pulling her toward the vault. We don't have time. Inside. Now. But the files are safer with you than anywhere else, Elias said. Once you know the truth, they lose their leverage. The vault door hissed as Elias keyed in the override code. Madison's heart pounded, part dread, part disbelief, but she stepped inside. The intruder's furious voice echoed down the hall. You don't know who you're protecting, Madison. Ward isn't who you think he is. End quote. Madison froze. Elias stiffened. The intruder shouted, Ask him what role he played in your mother's death. The vault door sealed shut behind them with a heavy metallic thud, muffling the chaos outside. Madison stood frozen, her chest tight, her thoughts spiraling. The intruder's final accusation echoed violently in her head. Ask him what role he played in your mother's death. Elias stood only a few feet away, shadows carving sharp lines across his face. He didn't speak. He didn't protest. And that silence, cold, heavy, suffocating, terrified her. Madison stepped back. Tell me she was lying, she whispered. Tell me you had nothing to do with my mother. Elias took a slow breath, eyes lowering to the floor. Madison, the truth is complicated. Complicated? Her voice cracked. A woman breaks into a building trying to kill us and accuses you of being involved in my mother's death. That's not complicated, Elias, that's horrifying. He didn't deny it. He didn't look away. That scared her more than anything. Elias moved carefully, as if approaching something fragile. Your mother saved my life. That part was true, but what I never told you is how we crossed paths again years later. Madison felt her knees weaken, but forced herself to stay upright. Go on. When I became CEO, Elias said slowly, I discovered corruption tied to an underground financial group, one that preyed on vulnerable families. He paused. Your mother discovered they were laundering money through a nonprofit where she briefly worked. She tried to expose them. Madison blinked, stunned. Her mother, quiet, gentle Evelyn, investigating criminals? She never told you because she didn't want you in danger, Elias continued. But she came to me for help. She trusted me. Madison felt a flicker of warmth quickly extinguished by fear. So what happened? Elias swallowed hard. I tried to protect her. I moved her off the radar. I gave her resources, a new identity, but the people she was exposing were more powerful than I anticipated. Madison's stomach twisted. Are you saying they killed her? Elias closed his eyes briefly, pain carving deep into his expression. I believe they orchestrated the accident. Madison dropped to a nearby chair, her hands trembling violently. She had lived her entire life believing her mother died in a simple, tragic car crash. But this was murder. A cover-up. A stolen future. And my father? She whispered. Elias hesitated. Madison's breath hitched. Elias, tell me. He finally met her eyes, voice barely above a breath. Your father wasn't just involved with that organization. He led it. The room spun. Madison felt the air leave her lungs. No, she whispered. That can't be true, my mother would have told me. She couldn't, Elias said gently, because revealing his identity would have put you in danger. Madison felt sick. Everything she believed about her family, her origins, her mother's sacrifices, was suddenly twisted into something dark and unrecognizable. And then came the worst blow. Madison, your father is still alive. The words echoed in Madison's mind, hollowing out the air around her. Your father is still alive. No matter how many times she repeated it in her head, it didn't fit. It didn't belong. Her father was a ghost, a blurred outline in the one photograph Evelyn kept tucked inside her Bible. Madison had grown up believing he'd died long before she was old enough to remember. A tragic absence, a closed chapter. Not a criminal, not a leader of the organization that had hunted her mother. Not alive. Madison's throat tightened. You're lying. You have to be lying. I wish I were, Elias murmured, but he never stopped looking for your mother. When she disappeared from his world, when she ran, he dedicated his network to finding her. And after she died, they redirected their attention to you. The room felt suddenly too cold, too bright. Madison wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop the shaking. So all this time, I wasn't just poor. I wasn't just forgotten. I was being hidden. Yes, Elias said. Your mother fought to protect you. Madison pressed her palms to her forehead, tears threatening again. Why didn't she tell me the truth? Because she knew you, Elias said softly. She knew your heart. You would have blamed yourself. You would have tried to fix something you couldn't. He stepped closer, but kept a respectful distance. Madison, your mother didn't run from him because she stopped loving him. She ran because he changed. The organization corrupted him. By the time he realized what he'd become, it was too late. Madison felt a weight settle on her chest, heavy, suffocating. And you knew all this? All this time? I found out after her death, Elias said. But by then, you were already in danger. I kept searching for you, but your mother hid you well, better than even I expected. And Logan? She swallowed shakily. How does he play into all this? Elias's expression hardened. Logan thought he could blackmail your father's organization. He discovered fragments of your mother's past and believed leveraging them would profit him. Instead, he became useful to them. Disposable, eventually, but useful. Thanks for watching. Poynton 24-1. Madison sank onto a metal bench, the weight of each truth cracking something fundamental inside her. So everything I've been through, every hardship, every loss, it wasn't random. No. Elias knelt slightly, his voice gentler. It was orchestrated by a man who believes you carry something he wants, something your mother died to protect. Madison wiped a trembling tear. What does he want? Elias hesitated too long. Madison's breath hitched. Elias, tell me. He finally met her gaze, eyes shadowed with dread. He wants you, Madison, alive. Madison stood frozen, Elias's words carving into her like a cold blade. He wants you, Madison, alive. The air felt too thin to breathe. Her father, a man she had never met, a man she grew up believing was dead, was hunting her. Not for love, not for reconciliation, but because she carried something he wanted. Something Evelyn had sacrificed everything to keep out of his reach. Why me? She whispered. What could I possibly have that he... Not what, Elias said gently. Who? Madison's heart stuttered. My daughters? Elias nodded grimly. Triplets born into a bloodline your father considers his legacy. He thinks one of them might inherit what he lost: power, influence, the loyalty of the organization. Madison felt sick. Her legs trembled. The vault spun around her. They're babies, she choked. They don't even know how to hold their heads up. They're just babies. I do know. To him, Elias said, jaw clenched. That makes them easier to claim. Before panic could break her completely, the intercom crackled security, shouting through the static. Ward, the intruder has reinforcements. They're breaching the lower level. Elias moved instantly. We're leaving. Now. He typed a rapid code into the vault console. A hidden compartment slid open, revealing a slender metal case. He tucked it under his arm and guided Madison toward a secondary exit. What's in that case? She gasped as they ran. The only leverage we have left, he said. Everything Evelyn gathered, the proof that could dismantle your father's network. The corridor shook as an explosion detonated somewhere above them. Dust rained from the ceiling. Madison stumbled, but Elias caught her, steadying her with a firm hand. This way, shouted one of Elias's guards. Service tunnel evac route is clear for now. As one, they sprinted down the narrow concrete hallway, boots echoing against walls that felt too close. Madison fought to keep up, her breath burning, adrenaline slicing through her exhaustion. Where are we going? She asked between breaths. To the surface. Elias glanced over his shoulder. Then to your daughters. They're our priority now. And after that, his expression hardened. We go on the offensive. Madison blinked at him, confused. Offensive? Against my father's entire network? You're not alone anymore, Elias said, and you're not powerless. Once the evidence in this case is released, your father's empire will collapse. A distant rumble shook the tunnel. The lights flickered. Move, the guard shouted. They're right behind. Gunfire tore through the corridor, sparking off metal pipes. Madison screamed as Elias shielded her, pushing her toward a steel service door. He slammed his palm on the release panel. The door hissed open, and on the other side stood a man with Madison's eyes and a gun pointed directly at her. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. The man blocking the exit looked like he'd stepped out of a nightmare Madison never knew she had. His hair was streaked with gray, his suit immaculate despite the chaos, and his grip on the gun steady, too steady. But it was his eyes that shattered her. Icy blue, flecked with the same gold she saw every morning in the mirror. "Madison," he said, voice deep, controlled, hauntingly familiar. "You look just like her." She stumbled backward, breath hitching. "You're my father?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips, pride twisted with possession. "I am. And I've waited a very long time to meet you." Elias moved in front of her instantly. "Put the gun down, Archer. She's not yours to claim." Archer Clark's expression sharpened. "Still pretending you're her guardian? Ward, you didn't protect Evelyn. You won't protect the daughter." Madison's breath caught. "What does that mean? Elias, what is he talking about?" Elias didn't take his eyes off Archer. "Your mother trusted me. I did everything I could." "Not enough," Archer snarled. "You let them take her from me." Madison's knees weakened. "You loved my mother?" Archer inhaled sharply, as if the word itself gutted him. "She was everything. Until she ran. Until she hid you from me." Madison shook her head, voice trembling. "She ran because she was afraid of you." "No," Archer whispered, lowering the gun slightly. "She wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid of the monster I became. The organization twisted everything. I couldn't leave, not without risking both of you." His voice cracked, raw, broken. "But you survived," he said, eyes locking onto Madison. "You lived. And now I will finish what your mother started. You will take my place and lead the network clean, legitimate, powerful. Together, we can rebuild it. I team." Madison's entire body went cold. "I'm not part of your world." "You were born into it," Archer replied. "And your daughters?" "Don't you dare," Madison snapped, voice shaking but fierce. "They're not yours." Archer's expression hardened into steel. "Everything connected to my bloodline is mine." Elias stepped forward. "You're not touching her. Or the children." Archer aimed the gun at Elias's chest. "You don't get to speak for my family." Madison's heart pounded. She had no weapon. No training. No power. Just the truth. "You're not my family," she whispered. Archer's eyes darkened, hurt flashing before rage took over. "Then you give me no choice." His finger tightened on the trigger, and a gunshot exploded behind Madison as a new figure burst into the tunnel, shouting her name. The gunshot echoed through the tunnel, sharp and violent, ricocheting off the concrete walls like a lightning strike. Madison dropped to her knees, hands over her head, heart exploding in her chest. Elias lunged forward, shielding her, as dust rained down from the overhead pipes. Archer Clark spun toward the noise, his weapon raised. But the figure who had fired stepped fully into view. Madison gasped. "Detective Rowan?" she whispered. Detective Marcus Rowan, her mother's old friend, the man who delivered Evelyn's belongings after her death, the man who quietly checked in on Madison every birthday until she moved to New York, stood in the tunnel entrance, gun still smoking. Except he didn't look like the warm, weary detective she remembered. He looked like someone who had been preparing for this moment his entire life. "Step away from her, Archer," Rowan said coldly, "or the next bullet won't miss. If you do that." A muscle in Archer's jaw twitched. "You followed us for years, meddled in things beyond your station." Rowan didn't blink. "Evelyn asked me to protect Madison if anything ever happened to her. I made a promise long before you lost your soul." Madison's breath froze. "Detective, you knew? About my father? About the organization?" Rowan's eyes softened. "Your mother trusted me with the truth. All of it." Archer scoffed. "And still you failed her." "I want to do." Rowan's voice lowered, thick with controlled fury. "We all failed her, but I won't fail her daughter." Elias positioned himself between Archer and Madison, no fear, just determination. "Rowan, we need to get her out. Now." But Rowan didn't move. His eyes were fixed on Archer, two men with decades of history carved into their faces. Archer slowly holstered his gun. "You think you're saving her by keeping her from me?" His voice took on a chilling calm. You don't understand what's coming. Madison is the key. Without her, everything collapses. The people above me, they will never stop. Madison shook her head violently. I'm not part of your world. I never will be. You were born into it, Archer murmured. And your daughters. Rowan stepped forward sharply. Don't finish that sentence. For the first time, Archer hesitated, not out of fear, but out of something else. Regret, recognition, pain. Madison, he said quietly, you deserve to know the real reason your mother ran. Dumb, end quote. But before he could speak another word, the tunnel lights flickered and went black. A low mechanical boom traveled through the ground, followed by the echo of rushing footsteps from both ends of the corridor. Elias cursed under his breath. They're here. More of them. Rowan grabbed Madison's arm. We move now. But Archer didn't follow. He stepped back into the shadows, and his final whispered sentence made Madison's blood turn to ice. They have your daughters. If you see the Skoda. Madison didn't remember screaming, but the sound tore from her chest with a force that shook the tunnel. They have your daughters. The 4 words detonated inside her like a bomb. No, that's impossible, Elias. Tell me he's lying. But Elias's face had already drained of color. He tapped his earpiece. Team Alpha, report. Status on the infants now. Static. Then a strained voice. Sir, the residence was breached. The girls are gone. Wikes. Madison collapsed, but Rowan caught her before she hit the ground. We'll get them back. I swear it. Elias's jaw tightened, rage simmering beneath the surface. Archer, what did you do? But Archer only stepped deeper into the shadows, expression unreadable. You pushed them into a corner. They took leverage, nothing more. Those are babies, Madison screamed. My babies. Archer didn't flinch. They won't be harmed unless you force their hand. Elias lunged, but Rowan blocked him. Not now. If he dies, we lose our only lead. Madison's legs shook violently as Rowan guided her toward the service stairs. Her mind spiraled 3 tiny faces, 3 fragile bodies. She could barely breathe. We have the case, Rowan said, gripping Elias's shoulder. Everything Evelyn gathered is in there. They'll use the girls to bargain for it. And we'll use the evidence to expose them, Elias replied. But we need to reach them first. The trio burst onto the street level. Sirens wailed in the distance. Black SUVs screeched to a halt beside them, ward security spilling out with tactical precision. Trace the convoy that left the residence, Elias ordered. I want drones in the air, and every exit route locked down. Madison climbed into the SUV, shaking uncontrollably. Please move. Every second counts. The convoy tore through Manhattan streets, engines roaring beneath the morning sun. Elias monitored satellite feeds on a tablet while Rowan coordinated with police channels. Madison stared ahead, fists clenched, whispering her daughter's names like a prayer. A drone pinged. They're on the Williamsburg Bridge, a guard shouted. 2 black vans eastbound. Cut them off, Elias said. The SUV swerved through traffic, horns blaring, civilians shouting. Madison held her breath as they closed in on the bridge. The black vans sped faster, weaving dangerously. Then, they're slowing, Rowan said, eyes narrowing. Why would they? One van suddenly jerked sideways, blocking lanes. The other accelerated straight toward the edge of the bridge. No, Madison screamed. Elias slammed a fist against the console. They're going to dump the cargo. But the van screeched to a halt just inches from the barrier. The back doors swung open, and Archer Clark stepped out, holding one of the triplets in his arms. The wind whipped violently across the Williamsburg Bridge as Archer stepped from the van, the infant cradled in his arms like something unbearably fragile. Madison's scream died in her throat, replaced by a sob so deep it shook her entire body. Give her to me, she pleaded, voice cracking. Please. Archer didn't move at first. His eyes, so much like hers, held an agony she couldn't decipher. She has Evelyn's eyes, he whispered. I lost her. I will not lose you too. If you wantin'. Elias and Rowan approached cautiously, hands raised, coordinating silently with the security team, forming a perimeter. Archer, Elias said evenly, this ends now. Don't drag Madison into your darkness. Archer looked torn between power and something painfully human. I didn't come here to hurt her. I came to save what's left of my family. You don't save family by stealing their children, Rowan said coldly. For a long, terrible moment, Archer seemed suspended between worlds, who he was, who he became, and who he wished he had been. Then his gaze dropped to the tiny girl in his arms, her small chest rising and falling, her peaceful innocence striking him harder than any bullet. His voice broke. "Evelyn begged me to protect you," he whispered. "Instead, I became the threat." Madison's tears streamed freely now. "Then let this be the moment you change, Dad. Let me keep them safe. Let me end what hurt Mom." Archer inhaled sharply, one final, painful breath, before gently placing the baby into Madison's arms. She held her daughter close, trembling with relief as the remaining infants were retrieved safely from the second van. The moment Archer surrendered, armed operatives swarmed from the shadows, his own organization's enforcers, furious at his betrayal. But Rowan stepped forward, flashing his badge, backed by Elias's elite team. Within minutes, the entire network's leadership was surrounded, disarmed, and taken into custody. Archer didn't resist. He turned to Madison with a grief-stricken nod. "You broke the cycle," he said quietly. "Evelyn would be proud." He was escorted away, disappearing into a sea of flashing red and blue lights. The danger evaporated into the morning wind. Madison collapsed, not from fear this time, but from overwhelming relief. Elias caught her, steadying her as she held all three daughters against her heart. "It's over," he murmured. "You're safe." "They're safe." Madison leaned into him, tears turning into quiet, shaking laughter. "I didn't think I'd survive this week." "You didn't survive it," Elias said softly. "You conquered it." Months later, at a peaceful garden ceremony overlooking the Hudson, Madison, stronger, radiant, reborn, walked toward Elias Ward, the man who stood by her through every storm. Not as a survivor seeking shelter, but as a woman choosing her future. Their vows were simple, honest, unbroken, a promise of safety, a promise of partnership, a promise of love earned, not taken. As Madison lifted her daughters into her arms, sunlight warming their faces, she finally understood. Her story didn't end in abandonment. It ended in triumph, family, and a love she chose for herself. All right, my wonderful friends, if you're still here with me right now, at the very end of this journey, it means something in this story has touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. So let's take a moment, just you and me, to breathe and look at what this tale is really telling us. This story reminds us that no matter how heavy the betrayal, how dark the confusion, or how impossible the mountain seems, we are never truly broken unless we stop rising. Madison's journey echoes a stoic truth from Marcus Aurelius. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. She didn't choose the pain, but she chose what to do with it. And that choice rebuilt her life. We learn that healing isn't passive. It's courage. It's clarity. It's remembering that we deserve safety, dignity, and love that doesn't fracture under pressure. Madison found her strength by facing her past, and you can, too. You are not defined by the people who tried to diminish you, but by the power you claim after surviving them. If this story stirred something in your heart, if it made you feel seen, understood, or just a little braver, please take a second to like, share, and subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but so our little community continues to grow, heal, and rise together. You're not alone. You never were. And your story isn't over yet.